Okay, so I read about the intense world theory of autism today, and I need to talk about it. I'm not sure that I actually learned anything new through this theory, but it was very validating, very anchoring, and very much paints a picture of the biological, physical processes underpinning monotropism. So this theory is very, very large and huge and unwieldy. So I wrote some notes, and I'm just going to be kind of looking back there at my notes a little bit because otherwise I'm going to go off the rails. So this theory posits that autism at its core is an epigenetic molecular alteration in the brain that results in hyperfunctionality of microcircuitry within the brain. So microcircuitry is like the connections and the cells that enact operations within each area of the brain. So the theory specifically refers to research done on the neocortex in autistic rats where their autism was induced by giving their pregnant rat mothers valproic acid during fetal brainstem development, which is a whole thing, but that's what they did. And other studies looking at the amygdala in actual autistic children and throughout development. Okay. So essentially, these hyperfunctional microcircuits result in selective hyperdevelopment of certain areas of the brain. According to the theory, the selection of these areas of the brain are selected through early experiences and may also have a genetic factor as well. So you have these sections of the brain that are super developed. And these, essentially these modules of the brain become so developed that they become autonomous and start to operate independently, reducing the influence of neighboring parts of the brain that may not be as developed. So these sections of the brain might find just the right stimulus and engage in this runaway processing that evades being coordinated or controlled by other parts of the brain. So what ends up happening is that an outside stimulus, like someone saying your name or walking into a room, or even some part of you inside that's like, stop doing this thing so you can do the thing that you're supposed to do, they're not powerful enough to stop you from being submerged in this runaway processing. I mean, I'm hearing this and I'm reading this, and to me, this sounds like monotropism. This sounds like engaging in our tunnels. So the result is that certain parts of the brain are super powerful, and a lot of processing power goes towards these parts of the brain to the point where other parts of the brain may not be so easily stimulated, because this creates an imbalance in the way that stimuli is received, with some stimuli feeling super important and super relevant and super in your face, and some stimuli just really not feeling like it's just not really hitting the spot, or it's just not getting through to you. So this seems to be indicative of what we call a spiky profile, where we're really great at certain things and not so great at other things. It seems to explain executive functioning challenges, and not that we can't altogether not read social cues, but that because of this hyperfunctionality, we're likely to experience the world as incredibly intense, aversive, and fragmented because we are taking in an extraordinary amount of detail in, and we may not be able to decipher which social cues are relevant or prioritize which ones are more relevant than others, because we are taking in so much that we can't prioritize and respond how the other person expects us to respond. This theory also indicates an inner world that is incredibly rich and engrossing, and this can kind of get us so absorbed within the vivid world of thoughts and considerations going on within us that we have to work to interact with the world outside of ourselves. That makes so much sense to me. Because before I ever knew I was autistic, I knew that I had a rich internal world. I knew that this internal world was so freaking rich that I could not easily access the external world. I get this sense that what is happening, the process, what's happening inside of us is what a community does with each other of neurotypical people who have a more of either a balance of internal and external, or are just more outward facing from inside of themselves to be able to be plugged into the collaboration of relationships that create the fabric of society. And I personally feel like my brain is I'm a hermit and my brain is my mountain cabin. And it's in order to interact with the world, I have to climb all the way down the hill, and I don't always want to do that. Anyway, the study itself was a little problematic because it was looking for the cure for autism, but the theory itself, to me, has the potential to be so neuro-affirming, and I'm really excited to think about different ways to leverage the ways that our brain works in order to help my autistic clients. So I'd love to hear what you guys think.